Hello, my fellow noobs and newbies to the channel. I've completed yet another drawing, this time with an original character that I'm so excited to share with you. So in today's video, I'll be sharing how I began drawing characters, what helped me the most, so it can help you, and I want to provide you with some tips that I've learned from my studies and practice. Also, for you non-noobs out there, please share with me what I can do better so that noobs like myself and noobs in the noob community can learn how to draw better as well. Alright, let's get to it. As aspiring mangaka, one of the main purpose of drawing is to create characters because we want to know the story about them. The characters are the central part of why we are invested on this person's journey. We are able to connect with them on a certain level, and we want to see their goals come to fruition. But in order to create a character, we need to know how to draw them, and if we're drawing stick figures, well, I'm sorry, the stick figures were probably really interesting way back in the day, but they're no longer interesting anymore because we want to see more characters that have more definition to them, that look more realistic, that look entertaining basically. So to create characters, we need to know the concept or the anatomy of the body. And because humans or human-like characters are so complex, we need to know how to draw all these body parts and make sure that it is in a visually acceptable drawing. So that means getting body proportions correctly, the angles, the perspectives, the shadows of each body part, and even up to their clothes and how they fold in between the creases, like the elbows, the legs, like underneath the knee, and so on. Although, since the body is so complex, it may just be easier to break down the body into parts, basically dismantling it. And no, don't start chopping people into pieces. That will get you a one-way ticket into jail. And it's also not very nice at all. No one wants that. So when I tell you that drawing characters is difficult, it is quite difficult. And this drawing in particular, I did actually do this character in two different forms. So one form is, which I'll show on the screen here, but one form is the character, a female, she is holding a lollipop and she's kind of tilting her head to the side. And then the second form is going to be her still with the lollipop, but kind of tilting her head down and has shades, and she's kind of looking at the corner of her eye socket that actually does not have an eyeball. Don't question it. It's just kind of a theme that I wanted to go with. But, I guess you could question it. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that drawing. But anyways, back to what I was saying, how difficult this was. I even drew a chain link fence, which you'll see at the end of this video. But even the chain link fence was difficult for me to draw. And I believe that things are only difficult for us to draw when we don't know how to create the lines or the forms that make up these objects and people that we want to draw. But like I said before, it becomes easier when we break down those bigger drawings into smaller segments, so that way, kind of like Legos, you add smaller little pieces of Legos on top of each other, and you just continue with that process until you eventually end up with a bigger piece, like a castle or a building or whatever, just made out of straight up Legos. But except replace the Legos with all of your lines, drawing and shading, etc. So have you ever looked at a drawing of a character that you've created, or even a drawing of a character that someone else created, and it looks a little bit funky, but you can't really put your finger on it, and then it just leads you to frustration with your own character, and you have doubts about someone else's character because you can see that clearly that character has not been drawn very well. And the main reason for that may not even be the actual drawing skill themselves, because there are some professional artists out there that draw but don't take the time to study anatomy. And even though the drawing may have good like light values, line art, etc., but may still look off. And again, the reason for that is because the anatomy is off. And so you want to know exactly where the eyes should be positioned, how far apart they should be, where the nose, the mouth should be, where the hairline is, where the arms, it kind of might sound a little bit silly, but you want to know how long the arms are and how long the legs will be, and even other things like fingers and, other little appendages like toes and stuff like that. So those are all important aspects of anatomy that you need to take into consideration before drawing a character. And yes, that probably does mean that you have to study quite a while, just as I did. And for me, I was drawing individual pieces of the body, like the skull and everything that I named previously, and that took me like about a couple of months. But at the end of my studies, I felt much more confident in my drawing of characters, and that study is still going on today. So one of the things that I want to tell you is that your studies don't necessarily end, or do not have an ending. They keep going on because you're going to continue progressing. So I want to share with you some of my work from my earlier character designs that I'm so embarrassed to show, honestly. But, I am on the journey just as the rest of you are. And I just want to show my work so that way we can critique together, and maybe this can kind of help you out in your character process as well. So my first character was inspired to me by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's one of my favorite comics. But if you haven't seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they have characters that are masculine, but yet very feminine at the same time. So they look very bizarre, but it works. And with this character, I can see that there was a few issues with it, such as the eyes were not the same size. The face was very unproportionate. Like it kind of just looks like a rectangle instead of having the circular, kind of skull, and then the chiseled jawbone is what I was trying to aim for, but it ended up looking like a rectangle face. Also, the lips are a little bit too low. The arm, specifically the one on the left, that the shoulder is a little bit extended, so it just looks like his shoulder was dislocated or something. His waist is a little bit too small, and also the torso is a little bit too stretched as well. So I kind of stretched his torso just like I did with the skull. The next character that I have is going to be a male, and this is horrible. He's kind of like has his arms crossed, and in this one I was trying to do a character in 3-point perspective, which failed miserably. And again, over here we have the same issue with the eyes, also with the I would say that the torso is somewhat okay, but the neck is not shaped very well. It's the neck is just horrible. Let me just be honest with myself. And his waist is also very, very thin. This last example that I want to show you is my personal favorite, and in fact, it's probably even better than the current drawing that I'm doing right now. You could definitely be the judge of that and let me know at the end of this video. But this one was my personal favorite, and unfortunately I don't have a video of me drawing this because at the time I didn't have a YouTube channel and I wasn't recording any of my drawings. But this character is, believe it or not, a male character with just long hair, very skinny, and it's very bizarre, which is the goal of this drawing. But I can tell you that after looking at this drawing again, and even though I feel like it's my best one, there's still some issues with it. Like, for example, maybe the eyes can be done a little bit better. Like maybe underneath the eyelids or over the top of the eyelid can be done a little bit better. Also, the face is, again, a little bit elongated. It's a little bit stretched, and that's one of the skills that I have to develop or improve on. Same thing with the hands. And let me know, people, how many of you have had issues with drawing hands? Oh my gosh, it is another bane of my existence. But anyways, I do feel like this is one of the better kind of like hand drawings that I've done, but I can still see that it does look like a little bit oddly placed, which is one of the things that I mentioned earlier on about not knowing anatomy. So even if you do know anatomy, you can see that if you're not careful with how you're placing the fingers, the hands, and whatnot, you can still make some mistakes on your drawing. So it's very important to have that knowledge, or at least I still strongly feel like it's important to have that knowledge of anatomy when drawing. Now, when I was younger, this was in my middle school years, the only anime that I was really exposed to at the time was Dragon Ball Z, and that was my favorite anime. This was right before Naruto and Bleach came out, but I just remember drawing Gohan so many times during class, specifically during my social studies class, and I just really liked everything about him. I just thought he was super cool. His hair, the muscles, the getup that he had, pants, shirts, I don't know what to call it really. But anyways, this is how it got me started on my manga journey, and it got me curious. So noobs, share with me how you started your manga journey. What technique did you begin drawing with? Was it by drawing your favorite characters? Was it tracing them? Or was it by looking at someone else drawing them? And tell me what you would like to learn. Veteran and professional artists, please share in the comments below what techniques the noob community can use to enhance their art, and also feel free to throw me some pointers as well. Those are always appreciated. Now, if that was a mouthful of information before about anatomy, first of all, I don't want you to get overwhelmed. The last thing we want to do is get overwhelmed, myself included, and that was one of the brick walls that I ran into originally, and that's what made me kind of stop drawing in the first place. So let's take a few steps back and just kind of try to break this down into smaller segments. So one of the things that helped me tremendously was by isolating the parts of the body by themselves and just drawing them individually. So I focused 100% of my drawing time just on specific body parts. Like, for example, the hands, like I said, is the bane of my existence. I was drawing those by themselves, so I wanted to see how the hands would look like if they were just extended, or if they were in the shape of a fist, or if certain fingers were bended, or if they were extended. So those kind of examples, like if the hand was in writing form, that also helped me out a lot. But yeah, I did do other kind of drawings that helped me to envision how these individual pieces of the body function. And then I did move on to other drawings, like the feet, like the top part, the bottom part, if the toes were extended or not. I also drew the skull and the individual pieces of the skull, which you probably don't have to do all the individual pieces of the skull. I just felt like I needed to do that for some reason. But the skull was also really important because it helped me to realize how the jaw moves, and how the eye sockets actually, for a long period of time, I always thought that one eyeball takes up the whole space of the eye socket when it actually really doesn't. So that's another reason why I think it's good to learn. But let me go on to some different examples that may help you in your drawing process. Now, one of the most helpful features or methods that I've come across was the Loomis Method. And now, I'm not going to say it works for everyone because it didn't work for me in the beginning, but after drawing for quite a while, I wanted to return to the Loomis Method and see why people were so hyped up on this particular way of drawing characters. And so the premise of the Loomis Method is that you get a sphere, which is the base of the skull, and you cut it in half twice. You flatten the sides, and then you break down places of the face in halves almost. So I know that's kind of hard to envision, so I'm showing that to you on the screen, but it basically makes landmarks of areas that you want to you want to simplify. Like, for example, the very top of the very first landmark at the very top is going to be the top of the head. The second one down is going to be the hairline, so that's where the very tip of the hair should be, or at least should be if they have hair. If they don't, then you can decrease it. The third line down is going to be the eyebrow line, so that's where the eyebrows go. And that's what confused me in the beginning, because initially I thought that's where the actual eyeballs would go. But I'm moving on, so I don't want to confuse you. The fourth line down is basically the bottom of the nose, and then the last line is going to be the bottom of the chin. And so when you think in 3D, this sphere can be turned in many different directions, and you can use those same landmarks to help you kind of picture how the face is going to look and how the proportions of each like nose, mouth, eyes, ears, how the proportions are going to change depending on how you adjust them. So that is another method that may help you. One more thing that I want to share with you is my thought process on drawing this character. So when we're first drawing a character, and you can see from the beginning of this video, I started with a really rough sketch. It was very ugly at first. It didn't look even remotely close to a professional drawing. And that was just to help me process where the face is going to be placed, how the shoulder is going to be leaning, and where her hand is going to be in relation to holding the lollipop, and then of course putting on the kind of like the clothing around the figure. And it's important to know that this is a normal part of the drawing process, because it's easy for us to get absorbed in these posts on Instagram, Pinterest, and other professional art sites, because they always show the finished product, and they don't necessarily show the process and how to get there. But you may also not realize that these artists were in our shoes at one point, and the reason why they're able to draw flawless characters on the fly or really quickly, and especially in those reels, is because they've had many years of experience in sketching and drawing these forms in ways that they already know the pattern and how to create that character to make them look great. So when you're drawing, if your character doesn't look good at first, it's completely fine. And just like how I redid my character, you're just going to do these rough sketches just to help you envision your character, and then you can go back and trace over it and perfect the line art until you get to that point in a couple of years where you can draw flawless characters. But I believe that is all I have to share for today, and please feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know how you draw, what is your best method, what you prefer, and if you still think that anatomy is or isn't required for drawing characters. And lastly, just like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all on the next one.